Buongiorno, buonasera, good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Ball Podcast. I'm your host and your buddy, Rocco, here today to discuss whatever's in my mind. First off, we'll start off today's episode that our thoughts are with everyone in Ukraine. We wish them the ultimate safety, and a message to everyone in the States, just take your head out of your ass and realize that there's other countries in this world and stop fighting with each other, because it's still annoying. You guys are still fighting about presidents, and people in Ukraine are worried about dying because they're getting bombed. Relax. I have lost faith in society after these few years, so I hope I'm wrong, but who knows. Moving on to losing faith in society. As many of you probably have heard, I was on the recent episode of the Growing Up Italian podcast with my good friend Sabino. It's always fun when me and him get together. We do a great job. I feel like we connect very well, and we churned a little bit of controversy up on the podcast with the overrated, underrated, or perfectly rated segment. And listen, I knew saying what I said would get people butthurt, as the kids like to say these days, but listen, I'm still gonna say it. To be honest, listen guys, if you watched the full podcast, you would see I had prefaced my whole thing to acknowledge that I'm actually half Sicilian, half Calabrese. And if anyone has grown up half Sicilian, half Calabrese, you would understand the battle that you experienced your entire life. My father ripped my mother about being Sicilian constantly. Constantly. That's all I heard my entire life was him ripping her about being Sicilian. It was hilarious. There was nothing malicious about it. It's just anything that, if she did anything stupid, like if she accidentally didn't, or no, if she didn't know something, my father would go, "Ma figlio mio, what do you expect? She's Sicilian." It was funny. It was all in good fun. And honestly, that's where I take everything I say. I am not a malicious person by far. And that's what disappoints me with social media a lot. But I do want to say this. I do not believe that there's any ethnicity or nationality out there that treats their own worse than Italians. Italians treat each other terrible. We are absolutely horrendous to each other. It is very rare to be able to call on to another Italian for a favor. And that's the truth. We'd rather do business with strangers than help our own kind. Not that I'm saying we have to be nationalists or whatever, but it's just, in general, we don't have to be so mean to each other, but yet we are. We are beyond mean to each other. We are beyond unfair to each other. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because Italians, and this is from my experience, Italians are very jealous people, and they're very egotistical. We need to know that we're the best at something, and that other people don't have it as good as we do, basically. And you saw this all the time, I had it all the time. Like, if my mother or my father baked a cake, a few days later, one of the old Italian ladies in the neighborhood would bake the same cake just so they could compare. It's just, we're always trying to one-up each other. But the problem is we don't build each other up. We try to build ourselves up by stepping over and climbing on the people underneath us. And that's honestly, that's the case in Italian comedy. I mean, listen, I get along very well growing up Italian. I would not lie there. But there are majority of the Italian accounts that don't get along. And that's because none of us can work together, because we cannot put our own egos aside. We cannot build someone else up while building ourselves up. It always has to be one person has to benefit more than the other. And that's a tough thing to do for me personally, because I enjoy doing this comedy stuff. I enjoy doing the videos. I enjoy meeting people, getting messages. I do not treat this like a business. I'm not out here to make money. I'm just, telling the stories about when I grew up, mimicking my parents because it was hilarious to me to make fun of them. And that's what I do. But I do not like to step on anyone. I do not like to bring anyone else down. Listen, if I don't like you, I just won't deal with you, but I'm not going to knock you to everyone I see. And that's the problem that we have. And I think as Italians and next generation, which, listen, guys, people like me, like my kids, they're, I'm almost first generation in America. My kid's second generation, but my wife's not Italian. So a lot of this stuff is going to die with me, so it's up to us to pass that on. And I don't want people to pass on that jealousy, egotistical mindset on to their kids. And it's something that we experience a lot, and I personally experience a lot being on social media. I mean, Italians are my biggest critics. And it's not Italian Americans born in America, not the Italian Canadians. It's the Italians born in Italy who think they are more Italian than us. That we are not Italian enough for them. That they think that they have, a monopoly on calling Italians. That they call us out because we do not know Italy because obviously we were not grown up there. Listen, I invite you to invent a time machine, go back in time, and, watch me get raised. Because, listen, my house physically was in Brooklyn, but within my four walls, you would have thought I was in Italy. I was not raised like an American kid. And I saw that firsthand when I went to school and saw that none of the American kids did anything that I did. So I grew up not being American enough for the Americans and not being Italian enough for the Italians. That's why we have this view of ourselves. We've been stuck in this, we've been put in a pigeonhole, Italian Americans, Italian Canadians, any first generation born not in Italy. We've been put in this pigeonhole where we're not good enough for either side. We get criticized from either side. The Americans will tell us, oh, well, if you don't like it, go back to Italy. All right, we'll go to Italy, but you're American, you're not Italian, you don't know nothing about us. And then, well, what do you want me to do, guys? Seriously, what do you want me to do? Then, something else that, it bothers me a little bit, but I have thicker skin and I just go with it because, sometimes it's fun. My name on social media and all these things I do is Rocco the Comic. Let's emphasize that last word there. Comic. With that word right there, you should understand that everything that comes out of my mouth is not to be taken as a literal, serious thing. I'm not on a news network pretending to be giving factual news. I do not Google stuff before I say it. Okay? Listen, how many times have I had to remake a video because I realized I said a name of someone I knew in it? Because, listen, I don't write scripts. I don't do that. I just wing the videos as is. And listen, if I say someone's name, it's a coincidence. What am I going to do? But nothing I do is malicious. But on social media, you have all these people who think they're holier than thou, and they're going to criticize you till no end. Listen, in New York, people, this is one of the things I saw in the comments in the Growing Up Italian podcast stuff, is little mention of Northern Italians. And I'll be honest to you why we rarely ever mention those people. I don't know any. And I'm being honest with you. I do not know anyone with whose line their lineage goes to Northern Italy. Because here's why. The Northern Italians weren't immigrating to the States, to Canada. They were fine in the North, and they stayed there. Everyone that I knew was either Calabrese, Barese, Sicilian. Maybe and Napolitan. Maybe a few others here and there, but I didn't know anyone from the North. And why was that? Because the North had jobs. People in the North were able to go to school, better schools. They were able to, work, support their families. They didn't have to emigrate. It's like us now. You don't see us immigrating to other countries because now we're here. And that's what happened, is that we don't talk about Northern Italians because we don't really know any. And that's the truth. I mean, it's not a knock to them. It's nothing. It's not that we do not respect Northern Italians. It's not that stuff like that. It's just that we don't know any. We're talking about our own Italian experiences. We're not talking about yours. If our experience align, if they align, then great. That's the whole goal, is to show everyone how we're similar. But in reality, I don't know anyone from anywhere else. I only know people from the South. And that's crazy. Even when I went to Italy, when I went to Milan, the driver who picked me up from the airport was Palermitano. He was from Palermo. He wasn't born in Milan, born in the north. He was a Southern Italian like me. And when I started speaking to him, he caught my dialect, and then he realized that I was from, that my family immigrated from the South. It's nothing not fair. It's just that people need to relax a little bit. We're not going to, listen, if you're following on social media, I'm not going to be factual. I try, but I'm not going to go into crazy deep dives to find out whatever I say is true. Like here, this is my thing with Sicilians. And honestly, it was not all of one. It doesn't bother me that much. It's just when I say that it bothers me when Sicilians say, no, I'm not Italian, I'm Sicilian. It's not the same as me saying, no, I'm not from USA, I'm not American, I'm a Brooklynese. It's the fact that you basically decline that you're Italian at all. Listen, it's still one country. I'm not, and the question is not asking you what part of Italy are you from, where's your family from. It's, are you Italian? Blanket statement. The same way I would ask someone, are you American? Are you Canadian? Are you Australian? Are you from Africa, South Africa, stuff like that? It's a blanket statement, but when they cut that blanket off and say, no, I'm not Italian, I'm Sicilian. And honest to God, when I was answering that question, I had a picture of someone in my head. Because there's people out there, and you all have them the same, that no matter what they say annoys you more than anything. And I had this person in my head when Sabino asked me that question, and that person is famous for me. For basically declining that Italian exists and that he's just Sicilian. Like, that's not how it works, guys. Like, I know, yes, being Sicilian is part of your personality, but you can't pretend that you're not Italian at all. And that's where it came from. And again, it's not malicious. It's just an observation. It was meant to be funny. I did preface the whole statement with the fact that I'm half Sicilian. I grew up with a Sicilian mother, a Calabrese father. My Sicilian grandparents were my babysitters. I had a Barese uncle. I have a Barese uncle who I saw almost every day. So that's why, and it's very interesting to me, and I've said it before, that when I speak, the Calabrese pick up on that part of the dialect, and Sicilians pick up on that part. Because when I speak, in reality, both mix. Because that's what I heard. In my right ear, I had my dad. In my left ear, I had my mom, my grandparents. So it just mixed in my head. And that's reality. The other part about this whole thing on social media and everything is that when, as a society, do we stop being able to take a joke? And I know it's like the cool thing now to be offended, to be angry. It's like if people aren't angry, they feel uncomfortable. That's what it looks like to me. It's like everyone wants to be angry. Because if you read those comments, you see the people who know it's a joke and they're faking angry. Like, they're like, I'm going to beat you up, stuff like that. But then you see the few people who are legitimately angry. Like, listen, I'm on the Growing Up Italian podcast. My name is Rocco the Comic. I wasn't a diplomat making a State of the Union address announcing to the world that Sicilians are a lesser people. I was a comedian on a podcast trying to be funny. Listen, you might not think I'm funny. Majority of people would agree with you. Hence why that 10,000 follower mark has been eluding me all these years. But in reality, all I'm here for is to bond with people, relate to people, make them laugh. And honest to God, my mother, listen, whatever I did in my life, part of it I did to annoy my mother. And not in like a malicious way, just because I loved annoying her. If you know me personally, if you've seen me around my mother when she was alive, you know my biggest, hobby was torturing my mother, basically. Was teasing her. Was getting her... listen, my mom would turn red like a lobster when she would laugh too much. So, my goal was to get her, to the edge of that. Every time, no matter what. So, me teasing Sicilians has almost little to do with any Sicilian beside my mother. Because I know how she would feel about that. Listen, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I do not have much of a family. I lost both my parents. I don't have any of my grandparents anymore. My connection to that generation that raised me is basically gone. So whatever I do on social media in comedy, a lot of it's to make you laugh, but there's a part of it in there that's me talking to my parents. That's me talking to my grandparents. That's me keeping them alive in my head. Because I'm sure some therapist out there is saying, Rocco, this is not a healthy thing. You cannot continue to make videos talking to your father who has passed away. Listen, I think it's hilarious. Because whenever my father used to flip out, I thought it was hilarious. Granted, he didn't flip out the way I have him flipping out. He was more calmer, he was funnier, and I just mix him in to other experiences that I had. But I just want everyone to know. I mean, listen, the podcast platform is slowly growing. It's getting to where I want it to be, but it's my offline, basically. This is just what my mind's thinking. It's like maybe a behind-the-scenes kind of thing to Rocco the Comic. It's the Rocco you don't see on social media that I can't say all the time. You know, stuff like that. I personally... Listen, do I wish I would have to make these videos all the time? No. Do I enjoy them? Yes. Most of the time. The high I get after I press post is an amazing feeling. And that's what social media has given me. Because in my darkest hours, making the videos has kept me sane. You know, it's in those 60 seconds of that video, my life is normal. I'm not someone who lost their parents in a span of 2 years. I'm not someone who lost their nonna 3 days after losing their mother. You know, I'm not someone who lives 2 hours away from where they grew up and really has no friends around him because they're all so far away. In those 60 seconds, I'm me, I'm happy, and honestly, the joy I get is the joy that the stuff brings you. Because, I don't know, maybe I'm a sick animal and there's not enough people like me anymore. I get more joy in pleasing others than any joy of getting pleasured myself. And that sounds dirty as hell, but I have no idea how to say it without sounding dirty. So just understand I meant that in the nicest way possible, not in any pornographic nature. So let's understand that, please. Yeah, I love when people love my videos. You know? When people tell me that they enjoy watching the video, stuff like that. That's my favorite thing in the world is you guys' support. So, you know, in social media, it's just a slippery slope. You know, you're going to have the people who enjoy your content, who understand where you're coming from. There's the people who are just there to be miserable and take people down. There's people there who think they're better than everyone. But that's what it is. That's society. But as a society, we should be focusing more on the positives and the negatives. You should be happy that there are accounts like Growing Up Italian or Italian Enclaves or stuff like that. Accounts that are looking to bring the Italian culture in America to the forefront. It's not. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And listen, are the Italian experiences of Italians in Italy different? They probably are. I couldn't tell you. It's only until social media that I get to see my cousins' lives on a more regular basis. And when we go to Italy, we're on vacation, so we don't really see the real lives either. When I went to Italy, I went there for a week. I was by myself. I went to Milan. I went to the north. I didn't see much of a difference between my life and someone else's life there. The language. I rode the train as if I would in New York. There was not much of a difference. But, everyone thinks that because of where you are, they want to minimize the value of your words. And that's not cool, but, everyone has the right to their opinion. I always say that. And this is coming from someone who had to listen to people's nonsense opinions about COVID as they were burying their mother who died of COVID. So if I'm telling you everyone's opinion is, valuable, then I mean it, because trust me, in reality, opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one, and most of them stink. And on that note, we'll end this podcast for this week. It looks like it's going to be a snow day for me tomorrow, so God help me. I wish you all well. I wish you all be safe. Be nicer to each other, and maybe trim your ass a little bit. I'll talk to you later. State buona. Ciao.